Welcome to Our Paramotor Nation. Tonight's show is sponsored by PPG Lights. Make one heck of an impression with countless patterns and colors on your paramotor. Lone Star Paramotor has become one of the most sought-out paramotor schools, offering foot launching and trike training classes and much more. Aviator Paramotor is a cornerstone for paramotor training while offering its students some of the top paramotor equipment. Fly PPG Discovered Power Paragliding has helped people from around the world get into our great sport. Charlie Soap, an all-natural laundry detergent and household cleaner, are like no other. Fly My PPG, offering a full-service paramotor training experience with 3 on-site instructors and limited class sizes. One Up Adventures and ParamotorProps.com, sharing their passion for flight on adventures around the world. Skylab Paramotor SIV, teaching paramotor pilots of all skill levels collapse recovery and advanced maneuvers. JK Custom Cars is a father and daughter-run small business, taking your vision and immortalizing it forever. Paraswag USA, your complete power paragliding gear source. iFly Indiana provides USPPA certified power paragliding training on your equipment or on theirs for prices as low as $2,500. Charlie Soap, an all-natural laundry detergent and household cleaner, are like no other. Wisconsin Flight Sports, making it affordable and accessible to get your paramotor training. Wicked Wings logo can help you have a one-of-a-kind glider with one or multiple colors. Visit the Our Paramotor Nation website. Check out the upcoming shows, the past shows, and all of its sponsors. And now, let's get started with this episode of Our Paramotor Nation.
The power to stop those going up. Engine tips are good, RPMs are good. And the breeze is nice. Oh, we're flying again. We're flying again!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Our Paramotor Nation. I am David Wolf. That was Giles, and he will be joining us here in just a second. I want to welcome all of you. We had a great episode last week, the 100th episode. Next week, we have got some stuff going on in the background there. We've got Jeff Fletcher, YouTube pilot, spy pilot. He's going to be coming on the show. That's going to be an amazing show. And then after that, the week after that, we got a really great show. Some real special people. I believe they are actually going to be watching the show tonight for the very first time. Paramotor pilot Kurt Duggar, and from Dark Horse Lodge, Gretchen and Kurt Catherwood. And it's an amazing story that they have. That's one you're definitely not going to want to miss. In the meantime, we have a couple familiar faces to the show. John Ripman Ryden, what's up, Johnny? How are you, buddy?
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Excited to have Giles on the show tonight.
Yeah, we're going to get to him in just a second. Did you do any flying this week there, sir?
Yeah, we got a little flight in Saturday morning, Jeff and I. A little bumpy, but nice flight nevertheless.
Awesome. Also joining us from the Wednesday night show called After Dark is Dave Trike Flyer Ruff.
What night is that show on, Dave? David Wolf?
It's on Wednesday night, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, Wednesday nights.
Dave, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. How are you guys doing?
Oh, doing amazing, man. Did you do any flying?
Awesome. No, nothing. Been working on the farm, getting 23 beehives going. I'm taking 23 new hives in on the 17th, so been prepping for that.
All right. Well, it's good to see you there, sir. Appreciate you being here as always. And then, what do you have going on this Wednesday night on? If you had some active shows here lately on After Dark.
Yeah. Last week was Kevin Can Fly. We did a little safety thing. I thought the show actually turned out real good. And this coming week, hopefully, he knows about it. I just got to double check with him. I've got Mark George, Paraswag. We're going to be talking about businesses, not only paramotoring, but just starting business and how they're run and all that other good stuff.
Awesome. Very, very good. And hey, guys, by the way, one more thing, too. I actually did have a couple other quick announcements here. If you want to ask a question of Giles tonight, all you got to do is start off your sentence with @DavidWolf. That way I can spot it. I'll get it up on the screen. We'll go ahead and ask your question for you. And also, something else that came up, one of our winners from last week was from Australia. And he said, David, he sent me a message, said, I really want to support the show and support Resurgence PPG, everything that you're doing. But for some reason on Super Chat, I'm not able to do it. Of course, all of our Super Chat donations, 50% of the proceeds go directly to Resurgence PPG, supporting the adaptive veterans and helping them get up in the air. He says, is there another way I can do it? So if you want to be a Patreon of the show, I know currently Shondor is our only Patreon. If you want to be a Patreon of the show, you can go to the Our Paramotor Nation website, www.ourparamotornation.com. Right there at the top of your screen, and you can go ahead and become a Patreon. We'll get your name up on the opening of the show as well. So there you go. Without further ado, straight from the UK at 2 a.m. in the morning, Giles Fowler is here. How are you, Giles?
I'm just about awake. I've had a cup of tea, as Greg Anthony Harris says. We've got the kettle on, had a cup of tea.
There you
so
go.
It's always good.
Why tea? Why tea? I mean, do you guys have Coca-Cola? Do you guys have anything else?
I can't stand coffee.
You don't like coffee?
No.
Very cool. All right. So, Giles, if you have not seen his YouTube channel, it is Golf Foxtrot 22. So I understand the Golf Foxtrot part. That's obviously it's your initials. But what about the 22? What is that from?
It was my wing size.
Oh, makes sense. Okay. There you go.
So depending on which wing I was flying, I just changed the number.
Is that your fixed wing size as well?
No, that's 13.
Okay, just checking.
Tiny.
There you go. All right. So, thanks, Craig Taylor, for that. I appreciate that advice there. All right. Let's get into it. Giles has been flying. If you haven't known Giles, he's got a great YouTube channel. Link to that channel is in the description of this video. Take a look at that after the show, not before the show. But Giles, let's start off with just tell us how long you have actually been flying. What do you fly? Because you don't just fly. You don't just fly paramotors. You fly a lot of other stuff. What else do you fly out there?
So first part, I started flying when I was 14 and started flying gliders or sailplanes, depending on where you are in the world. And soloed them by the time I was 16, and then by the time I was 17 I managed to get my private pilot's license and flown all sorts of things from that time up until now, really. A model aircraft. Most people seem to like flying model aircraft as well as a sort of passion. Then in 2009 I started flying paragliders, but still had a yearning to motor myself around the sky. And after that it's got to be paramotors, because I do not want to keep lugging my wing all the way up to the top of a hill just to fly to the bottom of it again, or try and stay up, or wait to fly. And that's where the paramotoring came from. Mm-hmm. And then in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, I've moved to sort of wheeled flying, trike flying, and I fly a flex wing or ultralight, as I think you might call them, flex wing, ultralight, or deltas, I think you call them in America, isn't it? Delta trikes.
Delta wings, but and you call it a PB, right?
That's the model, yeah. That's the make of it.
Okay. So, why do you prefer one over the other?
I like my knees to work, and having flown lots of heavy paramotors, not because they are heavy, but the amount of kit that you tend to strap to them, or the amount of fuel you want to carry with them, getting up, your knees start to play after a while, especially if you want to do long flights. So, as no John, we were chatting earlier about the mighty Hadron 3. It's a long distance, it's a mile eater, but to do that, you need to carry the fuel with it. So I like my knees, and so that's why I've moved to wheels on that side of it. I've still got my Hadron XX, but no paramotor to go with it.
So you're doing a lot of the PB or Delta or fixed wing. Are you doing any foot launching at all with the paramotor at this point?
Not at the moment, no. The irony is, the cost of the PB is exactly the same amount of money as it is to get a paramotor in the air. So for me, it was I either have one or the other. And at the moment, I'm very, very happy flying the PV because it's just relaxing flying, and I use wheels.
So
For those that fly trikes, it's just easy.
So now, when we watched that opening video, and I had that opening video because I wanted everybody to understand what you're really flying primarily. That was the first flight you've had coming off of this COVID. What was going on in the UK that they wouldn't let you fly at all?
Yes. So the restrictions that they imposed was unless it was an essential journey, and the requirements were pretty much unless you can go out, and they'd stopped all general aviation flying, and paramotoring is classed as general aviation as well. We come under the same rules and regulations. That's probably the same as your FAR 103. But in the UK, the Air Navigation Order pretty much said you can't fly. So we weren't able to fly at all, grounded, unless it was a maintenance flight. And I didn't have any of those. I didn't need to do any. So it's very frustrating. About 12 weeks I've been grounded.
I'd have been making stuff up. I got to test the spark plug. This guy wire doesn't look good. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, it was frustrating. Yeah, the last flight I had until about a week ago was New Year's Day.
Wow.
Can you imagine not getting your paramotor out since New Year's Day?
No, I can't. I can't go 2 weeks. I mean, it's been about 2 weeks for me, and I'm already getting the shakes. Can't you complain or say, "Hey, this is mental health. I have to go fly"?
I think a few people tried that one, but it was still no, because COVID it's serious. So yeah, we had pretty much lockdown. We've had 3 lockdowns now. Yeah.
Okay. So Slow Days wants to know, I mean, you mentioned that. Do you have any knee problems from paramotoring, or is it just, I don't want my knees to get bad, they get sore from carrying all that weight?
I have got a knee problem. Yeah, my right knee is slightly odd. Every time you try to get off the ground, it's like, yeah, that hurts. So really? I don't really want it to get any worse.
Okay. So we're going to be looking at a couple of things that had happened to you and things. I guess. I guess. And by the way, I do apologize to everybody. You know, this is obviously a new operating system, and there's going to be a little bit of bugs, but I think it's going to be well worth it. Yeah, as far as the audio not working there at the beginning, and like I said, we will get this thing worked out. I'm just glad everybody can hear Giles right now. I was a little worried about that. But that's a brief. By the way, I do want to say one thing. There is someone that is in the chat right now who did do an interview. This isn't Giles's first interview. He did an interview when he started this little thing called the Paramotor Podcast, and Giles was actually his third interview, and that's Anthony Vella. Anthony did a great job, and sometimes it's when I know that someone's been on Anthony's podcast, it's difficult for me to listen to it because I'm like, I was going to ask that question. I was going to talk about that too, but he does an amazing job, and kudos to Anthony, and we're looking forward to more and more podcasts coming out from him as well. But let's talk about this one flight that you had where you flew into some power lines. So I'll show that video in a second. Do you want to give us kind of a setup to this scary event that happened to you?
Yes. So this is in December 2016. We were, as a group of us, flying with a lady called Sasha Dent. She'd just flown all the way 8,000 kilometers on a paramotor all the way back from northern Russia. And this was her last leg, and I screwed it up. So as you've already alluded, I'm not new to flying, and I'm very aware of what's around. But the site we were landing in is not somewhere I'd been to before. We'd had a verbal brief, but not a visual brief of the site. And I'd been briefed that there were 2 sets of power lines. I spotted 3 and ultimately hit the 4th because the poles were actually buried in the tree lines. And everyone says, oh, you can't see the line. You can see the lines plain as day, but when you're looking down on them, you can't see them when they're up, looking up. And I'd made a missed approach to the field because I wasn't happy. There was lots of people in the sky. So you're as much looking up as looking down. I was setting myself up for an approach because it was a short football pitch, nil wind. And as those that fly a hadron, you come in quick anyway on a hadron. However, you try and slow the thing up to get that glide approach as they come in quite flat. I had to be as low as possible, and I just didn't spot the lines. And the next thing I know, I've broken 3 11,000 volt power lines with my wrists.
All right, so let's take a quick look at that video, and then we'll talk about the aftermath of that. Here it comes. There is no audio of that. I'm just going to kind of walk through what we're seeing here. It's this one right here. All right, so here we are. We can see this guy's watching. This girl is playing with her hair. And here comes Giles. Looks like, oh, snap. Yikes.
Yeah.
All right. So, wow, that's scary because you could even see electricity down a couple, I don't know, 20, 30 feet down the road. Tell us about the moment of impact. Tell us about the first few seconds where we're going, oh gosh, this is going to hurt.
Well, the speed you're coming in, I spotted them about 10 meters before, and I have made a video of this, but I'll go through for those that don't really want to watch it and give you the live version now. I spotted them about 10 meters before, which is about a second and a half. And because the posts are buried in the tree line, I wasn't able to see the actual line itself or the lines themselves. So by the time I realized, the only thing I could do is basically go fetal position, brought my hands up instinctively above my face. I didn't have time to put any power. A second and a half is no real time to react. And as I hit them, luckily they were old lines, so they actually broke. I didn't get wrapped up in them, which is a saving grace. But then what happened, it's knocked all the speed out of my wing, and the only thing it's going to do is dive to get that speed. And as much as you want to bury the brakes, I actually had no feeling in my hands or arms at all because the nerves had been overloaded. So all I remember was burying my hands, putting my feet out as best I can to arrest myself, and ended up piling into the ground, landing on my front with the engine still running, being unable because my hands were just like absolute jelly from the electrical shock. I couldn't even turn the engine off, and two guys ran over and didn't quite know what to do. I couldn't even push myself off the ground because my hands and arms weren't working. And so it's like, turn it off, turn the engine off. And then they literally pulled me up and took me out. But I was up and walking around within 5 minutes. The paramedics came expecting a cadaver, and I was walking around. They were like, "Where's this guy?" And I said, "Well, it's me."
That is so hard to believe. Wow. So no injuries at all? I mean, your hands were jelly-like?
I always use the joke, the scene in Harry Potter where his hands go all like there's no bones in them. That's what they felt like. I could do this, but I had no sensory return because all the nerves had been overloaded. And I say 5 minutes later, they were just coming back, and about 20 minutes later, I felt normal, except for my tailbone, because that lovely seat board, that lovely really half-inch thick plywood seat board, as I arrived in the ground, the seat board came up behind me and smacked my tailbone quite hard. So all the ligaments took quite a few months to recover.
You didn't break it, did you?
No, I didn't actually. The Bailey Matrix is a tough old beast, and
That's incredible.
it took me about 3 or 4 months to get all the motion back in my backside, as it were.
So I know I heard you say during your interview with Anthony Vella is that you took a break, you were maybe a little freaked out, and you thought maybe that's it for flying for you.
Yes and no. I'd already committed myself to doing a coast-to-coast charity flight, and that was the driver to get back in the air, because I knew that was passionate to me, because a friend of mine had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I wanted to sort of do something to raise as much money as possible for breast cancer research. So I was using that to help me get back up in the air. But then after that flight, I was all flown out. I'd done so much prep, so much focus on it, that I actually took a break for about 6 months. But halfway through that, I suddenly realized, no, I can't stay on the ground. I need to get back up in the air, and bought another paramotor.
Okay. So there's a couple questions that came in. I want to go ahead and try to get through as many of them as I can see here. So first question is going to be from Chris Fenimore. Did Giles get his COVID shot, and is he still allowed to fly?
I'm not in the age range yet. I am a whippersnapper, as it were. So we should be getting our COVID shots in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
That's very interesting. In the States, it's actually earlier because I just got my shot today. Don't judge me. I know there's some people that are very against it, but I did get it today. All right, next question is going to be from our friend Jim, CR120. how accurate is the impression that there are plenty of PPG pilots in the UK? How many flying buddies do you have?
Oh, loads of flying buddies. When we fly-ins, so like your bad apples, I suppose is the only one I really am aware of. Um, because the UK is so small, John now knows how small the UK is.
The size of Nebraska, correct?
Yeah, fit in Nebraska easily. You'll get 150 plus guys coming to a fly-in. But considering how small the UK is, that to get that number of people together and all flying is quite a feat in its own right. I have known sort of 800 people come to a fly-in, but yeah, it's not very frequent.
Okay. I'm trying to see if there's any more questions. I think that was it. I don't think there was any more, unless if I might have missed
Chris Fenimore, I thought you were going to be hard on me tonight. What's going on?
Oh, here's another question from Jim. He says, "Do you fly outside the UK at all? And where's your favorite place to fly? What do you like the most?"
I have flown outside the UK. I suppose I've got two special places. Spain, there's a place called Unladen, which was my first paragliding cross country. I was quite chuffed with that, considering I'm not really a cross country paragliding type person. That's got a special place to me. And Unladen in Turkey, where I did my SIV. When you're launching a mile up and it takes you 10 minutes to get to the exercise area, that's just phenomenal out there. It's absolutely amazing to fly in Turkey.
Awesome. There's another question here. I'm not gonna. Well, I'll post it on the screen because you don't see it anyways. Question from the chat. Who is your favorite paramotor pilot on YouTube?
Hey, Giles, actually, before you answer that, just remember, I just need your
Who's
address.
Giles?
Who's Giles?
Who's that person?
Giles, just remember there's a $50 EU bill in the mail for you. I just need your address before you answer this question.
Wow.
Try clear.
Do you have a favorite that may have, I don't know, had a podcast at some point or something like that?
Well, like Anthony Vella, you mean, the best paramotor pilot in the world.
Wow. How about that? I've never heard that answer before. John, have you ever heard that answer before? That's crazy.
First time.
Wow. Interesting.
I think I'm off Dave's Christmas list.
Yeah, well, you just lost $50. Here's another question. This comes from Mark H. What is the takeoff speed for the PB and the cruise speed versus PPG?
Takeoff speed, it's about 25 miles an hour because it has to stall at a certain speed by law. When they're designed, it's got has to stall at less than 23 miles an hour. So takeoff speed's about 25 just to get off the deck. Cruise speed, hands off, doing, as John will know, with a 5,600 RPM, it's doing 43 miles an hour without batting an eyelid. And then if I pull the bar in, as I did a test recently, I managed to get 52 miles an hour. And that wasn't even flat out. If I put any more power on, I just keep climbing. I can't pull the bar in anymore. My slim tummy gets in the way.
All right, there's a question here, and I know this is one of the questions we said, we're probably not going to talk about that topic. But when Todd Scandred asks a question, Todd Scandred's question gets asked. Here's a question. He says, how does the paramotor community view Prince Harry now that he is an expat? And he says he has a reason for asking.
I've got to be honest, I've got no idea.
Okay. Well, he did have another...
Sorry, Todd.
Oh, yeah. He has another question here, too. He says, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
European or South African?
Right. It didn't specify, but you can give the answer to both if you really like.
28 miles an hour.
All right, there you go. There you go. All right, I think that's we'll see.
But what is your favorite color?
What's your favorite?
Blue.
Blue. All right, there you go. Let's talk about another feat. So you are a person who obviously likes to set challenges for yourself. I am too. I mean, my personal challenge this year, I've got a challenge of trying to get myself 11,000 feet above ground level. I've got another challenge.
Come on, you got to go harder than that. Come on.
You know what? To each their own. This is mine. I've also got a challenge which was inspired by you, and we'll talk more about the cross country for you. But it was also inspired by Harley Milne as well, and that is going into altitude. your altitude and how high you've been. By the way, we do have, I want to thank Chris Fenimore. He just made a donation on the show. It says here, buy a spot of tea from my favorite UK flyer, Giles. So there you go. And that's not working now. All right. I don't know. There you go. Very cool. Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to go back to, why is this thing not working? I don't know. I've got things working, some things aren't.
To the height. How high is he going up?
Yeah, so let's do this. Giles, why don't you go ahead and mention how high you have flown. Give us a little background of it, and then we're going to watch a little video. All right?
So I've been to the height of 21,746 feet.
Holy crap.
Very specific because it was done in accordance with the FAI rules. So it's a little bit more complicated than just a singular event. It was about 11 months of planning. A lot of that was waiting for the weather. And this was back in 2015, where there was actually only 3 days that year we could have done it. And I chose the middle day because it wasn't at work time. So that's over 4 miles up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cold. So to do that, it was inspired by some fellow pilots at work that said, let's go and try some challenges. We were trying, there's a whole raft of FAI rules and Paramotor specific records. Some are speed to height, so to 10,000 feet, how fast you can get up. There's one to, so that's 3,000 meters. There's one to 6,000 meters. Wow. And then there's the ultimate height gain. And that's ultimate height achieved. It's not height gained. You can start wherever you want to, but being the UK, I actually thought 6 feet above sea level and then climbed all the way up. So I actually didn't give myself any advantages in doing it that way. Yeah, it was a lot of planning, and I could only do it with a team because you're physically dressed up like a spaceman half the time. 4 layers on, heated kit, double layer gloves. It got to minus 50 degrees centigrade with the wind chill. You know those flexible handles you've got?
Mm-hmm.
They weren't flexible by the end of it. They were solid.
They
if
all
I'd tried to
froze?
flex them, they'd have snapped.
Yeah, they froze, and I think you said you had ice on your helmet. We're going to take a look at
Yeah,
that.
so the dam, the neoprene wind dam, because the oxygen mask, it was sort of, the moisture was dripping out and going through it. By the time I'd landed, I had this big block of ice underneath my helmet.
Right there, you got Jim CR. He wanted to know when you went up, how did you take up oxygen? I'm gonna let you answer that question in just a second, because there's actually a shot on this video of you wearing this huge oxygen mask. Before we do that, though, I want to thank John Wayne for his donation, and he says right here for Bill H getting his new rig and getting in the air. We're going to ring a bell for that, too. So now my bell's working. I wanted to do that for Chris. Here, I'll give him yeah, there you go. Anyways, so thank you, John, for that. And let's take a look at this video. Hopefully you're going to be able to hear it. I think it was actually just music, but let's take a look at this here for everybody to see a couple shots of Giles getting ready.
It's before I started making videos, so it's really cheesy. Sorry about it.
Oh, that's all right. Here we go. So here we can see Giles is launching. You can see him sitting down a second ago. He kind of looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man with this huge rig. There's the mask, and this is at 19,109 feet. Here he comes in for his landing. And what's amazing about this is after all that, he was able to stand it up too. Very nice. So I teased Giles before the show. I said, yeah, I took some of your videos, cut them down to the most interesting parts, so they were only like 30 seconds long. But that's not true. That's not true. All right, Giles, go ahead and walk us through some of the details of that.
Yeah, so the main point, through my work, I was privileged to actually be able to do some hypoxia training, because that actually became relevant on this flight. I did actually start to become hypoxic at 18,000 feet. As you can see, or probably may not have noticed on one of those video with all my kit on, there were 2 oxygen bottles. One was the main oxygen supply. It was 2 liters, a composite bottle, so it was as light as possible. And on my right-hand side was what we called my last chance bottle. So if the main bottle system failed, I would then be able to cross-deck the system across to the other system, and then that would be the end of the exercise, or the attempt, and I'd be on my way back down, because the moment you go unconscious, you're basically a bag of potatoes on its way back down again with no control. The main crux of it, and I know you've got a limit, was it 18,500 feet you can fly to in America? Is it 18? 18 and a half?
Yeah.
I can't remember. So in the UK, we have a blanket 19,500 feet before you hit Class A. So the area where airliners fly. And I was in that, in a paramotor, approved. We had to have permission from the air traffic control organisation in the UK to do this. So I was on comms with a controller, and all I had to do was a position and a height at flight levels as all the way up. And as I was calling flight level 200, 20,000 feet, he went break, KLM flight level 150. There was an airline of 5,000 feet below me flying. I couldn't quite see him, but he was definitely below me and a darn sight warmer than I was. But all these factors of communications, understanding hypoxia, so 18,000 feet, I started to get pin dots in the back of my eyes, which was an indicator that I was becoming hypoxic. So just turn the oxygen flow up a bit more and then it abated. But unless you've had this training, and I see it a lot on the forums, people going, oh, I'm fine at 15,000 feet. You're really not, even though you probably live at that altitude. 10,000 feet, and I think you can go in America to 12,500 for 30 minutes, and then you've got to come back down again. It's a medical thing. It's not how hard you are or how fit you think you are. It is a biological fact that hypoxia will start setting in. I know people get headaches at 8,000 feet. So oxygen and understanding that side of how you operate as a pilot, a paramotorist, or whatever you want to call yourself, is fundamental to safety. And we wanted to make this as safe as possible. You're in an environment that your body's really not meant to be in. You go to 25,000 feet, no oxygen. You've got 30 seconds before you go unconscious if you don't have supplementary oxygen.
So when you said to me a few minutes ago, oh, go higher than that. No, I don't think I really want to from the way you just described all this, Giles. Actually, I asked Mark Honeycutt yesterday, what altitude do you finally need? Do you need oxygen at 10, 11? He said, no, it's a little bit further than that because he went up and he had oxygen going up with him. There was a question from Will. Was it this one here? Yeah, Will Fly wanted to know what was the temperature at the highest altitude.
The actual temperature itself was minus 35 degrees centigrade, but with the wind chill, it was minus 50. And it was really cold.
That's somewhere in between minus 40, minus 50 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
That's insane. What the next question's got to be, what all did you wear for that?
I had 4 layers on, and as you said, the marshmallow suit. I had long johns, seal skins. Mark Honeycutt knows about seal skins. They are really warm. I had motorbike heated insoles. I had a motorbike heated vest. I had heated liner gloves, heated outer gloves, the helmet, windproof stuff underneath that, and then the minus 40 degrees Mount Everest suit, just to keep myself warm. I don't know if it was in the video. I missed that bit. There's actually a box that I'm sat on.
Yes.
I made the box so that I could actually not move. I had to get them to pretty much clip me in the harness, trust that they would connect me in, connect my oxygen system and other bits and pieces, because if you get warm, you sweat. And I was climbing so quickly. My initial climb rate was over 800 feet a minute. And that sweat then freezes on you, and then you actually get problems by being so hot.
Yeah, you're
and
in
having
super big trouble.
Yeah. So it was all this appreciation that the preceding training I'd had allowed me to understand the complications. As he said, it's not just a matter of chucking a load of fuel in, gunning it all the way, and then hoping you don't have an accident. You've got to plan it. And those that know me know I like to plan things fairly meticulously. And it was all these little details that made it safe. It wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just the most powerful motor. It was having the oxygen, having the heating system, having a team, having the air traffic control, all this coordination just to do a 3-hour flight. It took me 1 hour and 10 once the engine had stopped because I ran out of fuel to glide back down.
Yeah.
1 hour 50 up, 1 hour 10 back down.
Wow. I think John was asking that earlier. How long did it take? Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, it's amazing listening to somebody that's been that high on a paramotor and then thinking about the story of the paraglider pilot that got sucked up in the storm up to about the same altitude, no oxygen.
Yeah, the Russian lady and the China lady, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and she survived. It's just amazing to hear what it took for you to get up there. Wow.
And I'm not very good at heights either.
Mm.
Yeah, they say somewhere around 9,000 feet, and I've experienced it before, that the human eye is so attuned to the horizon being in a certain area that once you start crossing about 9,000 feet, that nervousness that you get is your brain saying something's not right because the horizon's in the wrong location.
The weirdest bit is because you're so removed from anything that's giving you an indication of motion, you feel like you are just sat there.
Mm-hmm.
Although you know you're flying, your brain says, I'm flying. You've got no understanding that I'm moving forward. You just feel like you're at 20,000 feet,
Just
stationary.
sitting there. Yeah.
And
Wow.
that is really unnerving until you fly past an ice cloud. I was like, oh.
There is a lot of great questions coming in on the chat, and I do want to try to get to all of them. I'm trying to stay to the questions that are relative to what we're speaking about right now. So I know Todd had a question a little whiles back, and I'll try to get to that. I do want to thank Fly Baby Fly, made a $20 donation to the show. Thank you so much for that. And then I think I just saw another one come in too. Yes, there it is. Will Fly made a $5 donation as well. So it says, don't forget to give a thumbs up. So appreciate that, Will Fly. I had a question too, which was one that I don't remember, but I know that Craig Taylor had one. I'm trying to go back up and find it here. Craig Taylor wanted to know what wing you were flying at that time.
It was the Viper 326. It was the largest wing we could get that had the climb rate. And we'd done a lot of testing to make sure. We'd tried the previous year where I had got to 19,100 feet on a paraglider wing. But surprisingly, the Viper 3 was an incredibly efficient climbing wing. And so it's on my cheesy video, but the climb rate we calculated was over 800 feet a minute at full weight. And that is ridiculous climb rate. And you had to maintain that. The engine was at full power for 1 hour 50. Literally the throttle pinned for 1 hour 50. And it didn't even bat an eyelid.
I think either Sean Nasker or Bart Berry had asked a question as far as, did you make any special modifications to the motor?
One, mixture adjustment. I adjusted the mixture twice, and that was it. Because the size, you got your stoichiometric mix of 15:1, and as you go up, there's less air, so you have to, because otherwise they just rich cut. You have to get rid of the fuel to keep it going. And I had some instrumentation on my flight deck, but within about 10 minutes, it got so cold, it all stopped working. The GPS, the data loggers all just stopped working. Yeah, so engine modifications, the only thing we'd fitted was a carburetor adjustment on the main needle. That was it.
Was there any
If you look, it's on this side, there's a little silver knolled wheel, so I could grab it with a big fat glove. Was
there any difference in the way the motor reacted as you can continue to climb to these crazy altitudes?
No, that Bailey Hornet is an absolute beast of an engine, and I don't think it's in production anymore. It's effectively two top 80s bolted together with a special crankcase, and it was producing over 30 horsepower, I think, at the time. But don't forget, this is 2015, so we're going back quite a while.
Yep. Question here from Slow Days. Does Giles have a still shot from the view from that max altitude? It says, looked cool in the clip shown.
The camera froze at about 16,000. It's over 19,000 feet. Everything freezes at that time. And I was told by a microlight guy that had flown over Everest, he said, if you want to get pictures up that high, take a disposable camera because they don't need batteries. Because cameras, just everything stopped working because of the cold. Lithium batteries do not like the cold at all. No.
I think Walter had a question, but it was answered in the chat. And the question was, question for Giles, what did he do with the carby or fuel injection?
Was that the bit I answered earlier?
Yeah, I think you did answer that. Okay.
Yeah, we fitted basically a twisty, flexible lead to the end of it, and I could adjust it by turning an old wheel.
Yeah.
Until it sounded right, and then just carried on.
All right, I'm going to go back to a couple questions that were asked that were unrelated to the altitude flight. So this one was from Resurgence PPG. Does Giles have to do a conversation for his local time zone with Greenwich Mean Time? Greenwich Mean Time.
Not quite sure what you mean.
Am I reading that question correctly? Does Giles have to do a Oh, conversion. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read the question around my camera here. Conversion for his local time zone from Greenwich Mean Time. Do you understand that?
No, it says 2:39 a.m. in the morning. I'm up very, very early in the morning.
All right, very good.
I'm not sure if that's answered the question or not. Apologies if I've misunderstood that question.
All right, and I think there was a question here, guys, if you can help me out. There was a question from Harley Milne, 50X Challenge. I thought I saw one there too.
He's flown so much further than I am.
Well, here's another one too. Hot Buttered Steve, would he? Oh, this was a good one. Would you fly over the channel if you had a spotter?
If I had a safety boat, yeah. I wouldn't do it without a safety boat.
Okay.
We fly paramotor engines. They will quit at any time. Never assume you're going to make it. Always have a land out.
Okay.
I think Kylo says that a lot, doesn't he? Where's your out? Where's your out?
Yeah.
50X Challenge. Dave Wolf. Have him tell us more about. Yeah.
Go ahead,
more
Dave.
about the training. Tell us more about your training for high altitude.
The initial training. So I did it in two parts. One was my own mental prep. And I joke about it, but I'm actually not very good at heights. And there were 3 times on the way up. As I said, I lost this perception of motion. So I felt like I was just perched on the edge of a beam looking straight down. And I used to take my paramotor up to increasing heights. And I found after about 5,000 feet, everything just looks like Google Maps. And you kind of just get that perception. The main bit for me was the training to understand hypoxia and how my body was going to react. And so they actually took my body sats down to 50% and asked me to write your name, do this box, so on and so forth. And you just realize how quickly your mental performance degrades. Even at sats at 80, it's like, why can I not do that question? Why can I not add these 2 numbers up? So it always worries me, and I see it a lot on the forums when people go, oh, it's fine. I know I've said it already, but and sounding like a broken record, but oxygen saturation and mental capacity is pretty well understood in aviation medicine. What they taught me was enough, but there's so much more to it than that. So hopefully that answers your question, though.
There you go. This is a very serious question that comes in from. You may need to think about this for a second. Gyro Jeffries wants to know which is better.
Oh, Gyro.
Biscuits or crumpets?
Biscuits or crumpets?
Yes, which is better?
Well, biscuits you dunk in one of these, and crumpets you toast.
All right. And you're sure about this answer? Okay.
Yes.
Garden or front lawn?
There we go.
We don't have yards, we have gardens. That's it, isn't it?
We got another donation here from the Super Chat. Slow Days, I learned something every time. Great show. Thank you, Slow Days, for that $5 donation. We appreciate it, buddy. John, that's one of your flying buddies. You get to fly with him all the time, don't you?
That's right. He's a local.
There you go. John, Dave, any other questions before we move on from the altitude flight? Or, Giles, do you have any plans to beat it? Is there anybody that's flown higher than you in the UK?
Not officially, not that I'm aware of. And my only boasting point is it's an unofficial record. I've got the highest climb distance. Nobody's climbed higher because everyone else that's done the altitude records have started higher up. That's why I said 6 feet. I've climbed 21,740 feet. I'd like to see someone climb higher than that. Well, but it takes over your life. I literally was life on hold for nearly a year. So for me, that was, it took it out of me quite a lot.
Well, Chris
to
Venamore,
focus on these.
Chris Venamore wants to know, would you go higher if you had a pressurized suit?
I think the issue is you get into, it's an aviation term called weight spiral. So people say, why didn't you carry more fuel? Well, more fuel means your climb rate degrades. More kit means the performance is reduced, which means you need more power, which means you need more fuel. So you get into this weight spiral. So everything is down to an absolute minimum, even down to the point where I was using a composite oxygen bottle, not a main oxygen bottle. I think, Kylo, you used a big medical bottle, but didn't you? And it weighed a ton, which is why we used a composite one, because it weighed absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. Everything's about weight. Everything's about performance. And you get to this narrowing point of as we all know with aviation and paramotoring, everything's a compromise. And we had to make the most compromise to the point where I was on a diet so I could lose 6 kilos to be the lightest I could be to go on that attempt. And then afterwards it was burgers and full fat Coke and everything. So
It's crazy how much thought you had to put into doing this. I didn't realize, everything that goes into it. But the more you talk about it, the more how crazy the planning was.
Yeah. So when people, I need to make a follow-up video about all this because I get a lot of questions of people asking me all the details, and obviously depending on where in the world, it depends on the permissions required and other bits and pieces. But it is having everything lined up, so the moment you need to do it, everybody knows what to do. Otherwise, it's just going to fall over at the first hurdle. If my radio had failed, it would never have happened. Never have happened. And you think you've done all this other prep, and all for the sake of a radio and communications. The oxygen mask had to have radio comms inside it as well. So.
There you go. Well, since you just mentioned Kyle O, by the way, he did ask to say hello to you. He was in the chat there.
Nice one.
So he had a nice little shout out here from Hot Buttered Steve. He says, shout out to Dave Ruff. He made a $20 donation to the show. He says, shout out to Dave Ruff for his awesome show the other week. He says, you are all great role models. You're a great role model, Dave and John. Good for you guys and you too. There, Giles. So
well, I just put in there. I said, "Well, hey, I really appreciate it, but I learned everything from Dave Wolf.
Oh gosh, no, you
look at this show, man.
Thanks,
look
Hot Buttered Steve.
Let's take 30 seconds and look at this show. This thing is amazing.
I'd like for someone to teach me how to do audio a little bit better. Maybe Anthony Vella can help me with that sometime soon. We did have a question here. Just came in from Yankee Paramotor, and he says, "Did Giles consult Bear Grylls?" Since Parajet walked him through the Everest flight?
No, I didn't, because he did it in a different way. How I did actually consult Karen Skinner. If nobody's heard of Karen Skinner, she is a fantastic pilot. She's got the female world altitude record, and I did consult with her because she'd been through all the motions. And we sort of exchanged notes because there's bits and pieces I'd done that she hadn't.
On Paramotor, she did it?
Yeah. Karen Skinner.
I never heard of that. So who helped her plan for hers? Because it seems like there's so much planning.
Ramon Morales.
Okay.
Who's got the male. So there's a female and a male world record, and she's got the female one, and he's got the male one.
Well, Chris.
What was his altitude, Giles?
I know I'm mixing my measurements here, but he was 150 meters higher than me where I stopped. I was 150 meters short.
Wow.
But you have to beat it. So in the FAI rules, you have to beat it by 3%. There you go, 3%.
Oh.
So even if you beat it by one foot, you haven't beaten it. You have to get... So I had to get to 25,600 feet to officially break his record. That's what we were aiming at, 25,600.
And the motor quit. You couldn't do it.
I ran out of fuel.
The motor quit.
Yeah.
So.
It went very quiet, and it's really disconcerting being at that high in absolute silence. In an airline, you look out the window at 20-odd thousand feet, and you've just got the hum of the aircraft and all the noise. But being in a paramotor, absolute silence, especially with ear defenders on, you can hear nothing. It is the most surreal experience I will ever have experienced.
No, you'll do it again and go to 25.8.
He's not into it, Dave. He's been there, done that, and it's in the back seat.
I will happily help and advise anyone else who wants to do it and do it safely. But I don't
think my Fellini 250 will get me there.
Maybe Chris Fenimore should be advised by you, because he put in the comment here. So when does Giles plan on taking his PB up to 25,000 feet?
Here's the funny thing. I now come under microlight rules, so they carry much bigger fuel tanks than me and more weight. So I don't think I'll do anything on a PB.
Yeah.
PB's all about having fun. That's what they are, fun and comfort.
Here's a good question that came in just now from Sky Flying Sean. He says, what were the winds aloft when you were flying up there? And that actually was a question it kind of relates to a question I was thinking of earlier, is when you went up, how far away from your LZ did you actually go?
So that was part of the prep, and this I alluded to the fact there were only 3 days that year that we could have done it. because high pressures, and Kylo's going to tell me off for getting this all wrong, but high pressures aren't just conal. They change and shift all over the place, and they transit with height. So the days that we chose, the high pressure pit that we'd had was very conal. It went all the way up. So I launched in 3 miles an hour of wind, and it was 7 miles an hour aloft. And I actually landed 30 meters from where I took off.
Okay. How far away did you fly? I mean, did you fly a mile away? Did you stay pretty much
all the way up, all the way back down again?
Straight up like an elevator.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So there's another question here that just came in. This comes from our friend Sean Nasker, and he says, what is your most memorable and favorite flight that you've had so far in your entire flight experience? Wow. You got to go all the way back to when you were, 14 years old when you first started. You got your private pilot's license at 17. So what was your favorite flight? What were you flying? Tell us about that.
I think there's lots of firsts in all types of aviation, be it the first time you're sent solo. And I think we can all remember that. But then I've soloed in different aircraft, so they've all got different memories on that. I think from a purely unique experience, it's got to be the altitude one. Because I will never, ever experience that again. And that total serenity of complete silence and flying past these high altitude ice clouds, which you only ever see from the ground, and you just reach out and you want to touch it, and you just know that's ice. It's like, I shouldn't be here. That for me is probably the most magical. But then if you sort of take all the things, I always think back to when I was 16 years old and I'm thermaling and I've stayed up for nearly an hour just on thermals alone in a sailplane, and then come in and land, and it's just so there's so many firsts. But I think if for one that is totally unique, and I'm sorry I'm rambling here, is going to be that altitude one, just because I will never ever experience that again.
Yeah, honestly, hearing you talk about it with the gear and stuff, you might as well have been on the moon.
Not far off, apart from it being unpressurized.
Yeah.
And having the oxygen system. It was, as I said, it's an environment we are biologically not meant to be in at all. It's, base camp of Everest at 14,000 feet, I think, isn't it? And even then they're trying to get their oxygen levels reacclimatized. I've just blasted straight past that and kept on going. So my body is not comfortable in terms of oxygen or pressure. You can be at still 100% pressure, 100% oxygen, but the outside air pressure means your body does some really strange things. And that's where people don't understand just how, I don't want to be melodramatic, but it is a really dangerous environment to be in if you're not prepared for the oh poo moments of my oxygen system has just frozen. I need to get down. I'm going to go unconscious in 2 minutes time if I don't do something.
And that's exactly what I said. You might as well have been on the moon. Because I mean, to an astronaut, something goes wrong with their backup system, and they're toast. It's amazing.
And they're in a vacuum.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Well, there is that.
Yeah.
Giles, there's a question here, and this is coming from Resurgence PPG. He's got a lot of questions, and I love it. And Todd wants to know, and I'm assuming this is in regards to the altitude record, but what is a rough idea of the cost to cover all the development, the testing, and the flight itself? Great question.
I was lucky. I knew Paul Bailey from Bailey Aviation, who had actually designed that engine himself. He's a British engineer. Actually, he's a stuntman as well. He's a really crazy guy. If you want to Google Paul Bailey, he does some really crazy stuff. So he'd actually designed that. That was just a standard production engine that he was making. That was his demo engine as well. Short of putting a lambda sensor in for making sure the mixture was correct and modifying the needle valve, there was nothing more that was modified on it. It was a standard production machine, if nothing else. Costs, it's hard to say because it's just a lot of the standard stuff is the wing. Okay, I had to buy the wing. I was loaned the machine. Thank goodness for that. I just handed that back. Flycom had loaned us the helmets. Summit Oxygen, thank you Summit, I know it's a long time ago, they loaned us the oxygen system for that. The most expensive thing actually was the Everest suit. They're about £1,200. Was that about $1,800? And they're all custom made. However, I had to butcher it because it comes with this lovely hood, and we've all flown with hoods, and it tends to do this behind you. So I had to cut it off, but because they're filled with down feathers, if you didn't double stitch it and cut in between, all these feathers ended up going everywhere when you tried to stitch it. So I modified it around here. So overall costs, I suppose it's just like buying another paramotor setup apart from getting loaned kit. I couldn't give you an exact figure on that one, so I'm not sure I've really answered that question very well.
Oh, it's a good idea. Another question here coming from Andy Cobb, and he says, what do you prefer, fixed wing or PPG?
Oh, well, I did make a video on this, which did go a little bit viral. Which one do I prefer?
PPG if you had a good knee. PPG if you had a good knee.
It's horses for courses, and I had to explain to someone it's a horse that likes to ride in certain conditions. So I do love paramotoring, and it's got the uniqueness that things like the Icarus X, and you've got the Icarus over that happens in America. You couldn't do that on a Delta trike. You physically couldn't.
I see how you got to transport that thing. You got too much stuff on the top of your truck transporting that Delta wing.
But then, for the sheer fact that I haven't got to take off with all the weight, is why I like the Delta trike. So it's. You can get in and out of very small spaces on a paramotor, which you need a designated smooth surface for a trike. As you guys that fly trikes as well, you go to a rocky area, it's just going to mess you up completely. Your wing's not going to come up and all these other bits and pieces. Whereas foot launched, you're gone. So it's all relevant. And that's kind of why I made the video. And a lot of people go, oh, what about this? What about this? I was like, well, paramotoring you can do this, and Delta trike you can do this.
You know, it's the beauty about being a YouTube creator is you get to have an opinion, and then someone else can have a different opinion, and that's okay, right, guys? We can always...
Well, someone told me I should buy a Falcon 900 jet and compare that. So I was like, no, I don't own one of them. I can't compare it.
We got another question here, and I like this question a lot.
Do I have to be worried, Dave?
No, not at all. This is coming in from DP. He says, can you describe the ice cloud? And more in depth, if possible, was crystal suspended or was it more solid? That's such a cool question. Like you said, it's like right there in front of you. What is that like?
It was like crystal suspended, and because everyone's seen the dog halo of where you fly over cloud and where the sun was, it was just magnificent flying past it. So yeah, it wasn't very big, but it was like a little wispy lamb's tail, and I was like, I'm going to remember that forever now. So yeah, it was just beautiful. Maybe I was getting low on oxygen. I don't know, but
Chris Fenimore's asking some crazy questions right now. I think he's just after you at this point. But
he said he was going to give me grief tonight. Apparently.
Oh, he's giving me grief tonight. All right, Jim CR120 says, David, you don't have to mention my name every time. But Jim CR120 asked this question after you did this amazing 21,000 plus foot flight, let's call it 4 miles just to make it easy. What did you do to celebrate afterwards?
I had a burger and a full fat Coke.
Nothing else besides that. Just
no. I just packed the van up and drove home. And waited 2 days for my hands to warm up properly. My body was telling me that was a cold experience, and I didn't get proper feeling back in my fingers for about 2.5 days.
By the way, JP Tula, I did see your question. I'll answer that offline as far as when we're doing that flight. We had one of our former guests, one of our favorite Canadian flyers is Jerry Delier, and he wants to know if you still have the suit. He's interested in buying it off of you.
I do have it, but it's already been earmarked, so sorry about that.
All right, another question here comes in from Gyro Jeffro, and he says, if you wanted
Hi, Gyro.
there you go. If you wanted to fly fixed wing over flex wing, what aircraft would you choose?
Oh, now that's a tough one.
P-51.
A P-51? That's not a microlight, though, is it? I can't fly anything else.
Hey, I would take that over my trike any day. I'm just saying.
My fixed wing aircraft of dreams is the Hawker Hurricane. It's like the ugly
You,
duckling.
sir, are a gentleman. Yes. Yes.
It's got 8 machine guns, and it's the bomber buster. It was always the unsung hero. It was the victor of the Battle of Britain because it kept all the bombers away.
So there's another question. This is a very important question, but it's really not for you, Giles. It's more for me. And the question comes from Never Trust a Skinny Chef Shane. He wants to know, what cream am I using to make me look so young? Looking good tonight? Well, I might be drinking too much, LOL. The answer is you're probably drinking too much, but maybe it's the lighting. I took away the old background. I've got some lighting up here on the wall instead, so it could be that, or maybe I just had a pretty good afternoon. Who knows?
Hey, Dave.
Yes, John. Dave. Yes, sir.
Maybe it's Maybelline. Just saying.
It could be Maybelline. I do sometimes put some. No, I don't. We do have actually. That's something true. Oh, I don't think he's watching, but go ahead, Giles, if you want to show that shirt up there. This guy, yeah, PPG Gorilla. Did you really?
Oh, look at that!
I'm assuming, Giles, that you paid that he sent that to you.
I did buy that. I bought
you
it.
Didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, Giles.
I did.
Oh, come on! Don't make us lose respect for y'all at this point of the day. All right. There's some conversations about Bitcoin going on. Yankee Paramotor's trying to make some money, it looks like. All right. All right. Preparation H is great for... Thank you, Hot Buttered Steve. Great suggestion there. Hot Buttered
Is this
Steve.
pre-show?
This feels like pre-show, Dave. I don't know. All right. Where are we on time? What time is it? Holy crap. It's already been an hour.
10 o'clock.
We have more questions. I don't know. Wow, it's been a whole hour already. Wow. Should we go a little bit longer, John? You're the production manager here. We could go a little bit longer.
If you got some good stuff to ask Giles, definitely do it.
Giles, did you want to talk? I know we talked about a couple things prior to. I think we hit all the big stuff, though. Do you want to talk a little bit about the SIV that you had in Turkey?
Yeah. So I sort of touched on the coast to coast, but I'll tie those. I'll tie those two in together.
I definitely wanted you to talk about the coast to coast because that was very, very important.
I'll do SIV first then.
Yep, go for it.
So luckily, through my employer, we were allowed to go out to Turkey, to Uludeniz. I know Carl Mooney likes Uludeniz. He talks about it a lot, and it is the mecca for SIV outside of the US. You've got a lot of areas in the US that you can do it. But globally, the mecca for SIV is out there. And if I take one thing away from my SIV, is just how much you can bend your wing out of shape. And I love it when people talk about, when do you fly? And admittedly, in the UK, our thermals aren't quite as strong as in the middle of the Texas desert or wherever. But should I be afraid of collapses? No, because guess what? It's going to collapse. But you deal with it. You learn how to deal with it. Now, I've lost 50% of my wing, and it's happily flying, and then you pump it back out. And on my SIV, there's one launch that you cannot abort from. It's a very rocky area, and I spent 4 minutes. I had a proper tucked-in cravat, and so I couldn't abort. I had to carry on with the launch, and I spent 4 minutes doing big ears and pumping and big ears and pumping, eventually working this cravat out. Because if I couldn't get the cravat out, I couldn't then carry on with that flight profile of what we were then meant to be doing over the water. And so for me, SIV just teaches you energy management and wing control and confidence in it. And I was going to touch on that with the coast to coast, but I'll wait for that. But yeah, don't ever be afraid of your wing, but get confidence in it and understand that you can bend the thing out of shape, have it collapse on you, and you just deal with it. Because guess what? They're good wings nowadays, not like back in the 90s when they were shoulder busters and other bits and pieces. So,
Giles, I want to stop you for a second right there because I know it was a long time ago that you were on the Paramotor podcast, but when I listened to you talk about this topic, it was eloquent, it was great. It was like, man, when Dave and John and myself talk to people about going to SIV, that's exactly how I want someone to describe it, is the way you did there. And you talked about how your confidence building, and that, when you're flying now and you take a collapse, like, oh, no big deal, it's okay, that's supposed to do that. And talk about how, if you can remember back when you were talking to Anthony about flying on a half a wing, and how you, I guess, how you felt about that, and the realization of, wow, these things can really fly just on a half a wing.
Yes, I mean, my instructor was actually an acro pilot, Johan. He was a brilliant guy, But Jockey was the main instructor, Jockey Sanderson. He may not be as. Have you heard of Jockey?
He's great.
Yeah,
Jockey's great.
Yeah, so it was Jockey's company that we were out with, and Johan was trying to describe to me, collapse your wing, and I want you to lean into the collapsed side to see what happens. And he called me a sack of rotting potatoes as I was collapsing this wing in, and it just didn't do anything. I know my wing was a Gin Atlas, so it was only a high B. Other wings would have taken more of an aggressive stance afterwards, but literally I've collapsed this side. I'm leaning on the collapsed side and it's just doing a graceful circle. You let it out, pump out the collapse and then carry on. And you have to do SIV. There were some people there quite low airtime. There's one guy only had 5 hours. Some had 30. And I was sort of up in the 100 plus, but it was just, you had this whole ability range of people coming away with the same experience of my wing will look after me. I always love these things of why don't we have this inflatable bar in a wing? You actually need a wing to collapse, because if it doesn't collapse, it can't recover itself. So actually a paraglider is an amazing machine. And I use, what was the phrase they used when people have wings go forward, they go, why does it collapse? And they call it a pressure valve. If it doesn't get to that 45 and then tuck and come back, it's actually very dangerous. This is where the acro wings don't tuck, is that they actually go forward. And that's where you can end up with a nice little gift wrap. Mm-hmm. But that front collapse is a really good thing. If you don't have that, it's a dangerous wing. So again, wings that collapse are not dangerous. They're telling you what's going on in the air. So just trust it. It'll by the time it's come out of a collapse, oh, my wing's collapsed. Yeah. Brilliant. You haven't had to do anything. It's come back out. Carry on.
Outside of the SIV, have you ever thrown a reserve?
Never thrown a reserve.
Okay.
Always fly with one. Anthony
didn't. He is now. Back at the time of the podcast, he said he wasn't. Very good.
Standing joke between me and him.
Okay. All right. So Resurgence PPG, I guess this is a shameless plug put into a question. He wants to know, do you have a Amazon Smile account set up to support Resurgence PPG?
Not yet.
Wow, that's kind of low, man. That was low. Make sure you set up your Amazon Smiles to support Resurgence PPG. There you go. I do. And apparently so does Never Trust a Skinny Chef Shane. All right, let's do this. Let's wrap this up with one more topic. But before we do, I think John Ripley has a question. Johnny.
Yeah, she told me to raise my hand.
You did great. I was actually, unfortunately, I was actually in all four of us on that view when you did that. But go for it. You did perfect. Go ahead, Johnny.
Did you mention you were going to do a giveaway?
We will do a giveaway. Yes, we will. We're going to give away. Thank you, John. And then we'll get to that last question for Giles. But we're going to give away a pair of gloves here. This is from Fly PPG. These are really nice gloves too. We gave away back at the Christmas Spectacular. We did that. These come in any size that you possibly want, as long as it's large. And if you don't have a size large hand, these make a great gift for someone that does. So that will be the gift tonight. So in a second, after Giles answers this question, Johnny will go ahead and throw out a question for everybody in the chat, and whose ever name comes up first. I don't know if I'm going to be able to share it, but we'll go with it. We'll go with what John or Dave see.
Yeah,
first.
we'll watch it. Dave and I will watch it.
Yeah. All right. So Giles, going back to the question of this cross country. We got a guy here in America. His name is Harley Milne. He made a cross country. It did it in 9 days. He crossed a country. How many days did it take for you to cross the country, Giles?
5.5 hours.
What? Just 5.5 hours? That's so much less time than 9 days.
Remember, 300 miles to the widest bit.
David, his country fits in Nebraska.
Oh, that's true. Thank you. All right, Giles, tell us why you did this inspirational, and quite frankly, it's inspiring me to do something as well. But go ahead, Giles.
Yeah. So I wanted to do something for charity, and I mentioned earlier about the breast cancer. My friend, who's actually recovered now from breast cancer, but I still wanted to do something to raise money for breast cancer research. If it helps anybody else, that was my main aim. That was my driver and it was also helping me recover as well from my previous accident, that whatever I'm going through on this flight, I get to walk away at the end of it. They still have to live with whatever they're going through. Anyway, so that was the main focus for it. So I thought, not just hop, let's just do this non-stop. So Bailey Aviation again helped me out with this, and I was using a Bailey 4-stroke, and I took over from the west coast of Wales in Pembrokeshire, right, and literally see the coast on the west coast of Wales, and then I planned to fly all the way across, avoiding all the airspace, all the way across to the east coast to where I grew up, and literally could see the east coast of England. 300 miles non-stop, didn't touch the ground through some of the worst conditions I've flown in my life. Flying over the Black Mountains, got absolutely smashed. And this goes back to that point about SIV and just trust your wing. Flew all the way across. Every 80 to 100 sort of kilometers, I was getting a different weather pattern, from high speed winds to low cloud base to wave to then flat high winds. I mean, I was landing in gusting 26 miles an hour, I think the winds were. Landing fully trimmed out in a Hadron XX, barely going nowhere. At one point, I was actually flying backwards at 18 miles an hour. So I had to come down through the wind gradient to get into the airfield. I could see the airfield in front of me, but I'm going backwards, which was not fun. And then just as I was coming in, about 20 feet, took a double collapse, which was fun. And I didn't realize I'd had it until I landed. I just thought I came down quickly through the wind gradient. But yeah, I was properly battered after that flight, and then I had to have a break. But yeah, that was so Harley, I'd take my hat off to you for what you've done. I did one flight, you've done lots.
That's horrible conditions to come down. This was a great comment. It's up on the screen right now. It's from DP, and he says, "Thank you, Giles. My wife was just diagnosed weeks ago." So wonderful what you did there. Very good. All right, Mr. Ruff and Mr. Ryden. Actually, Mr. Ripa. How about take yourself off mute there for a second, sir? You have a question,
Mr. Ryden.
Mr.
That's a
Ryden.
good one.
All right, Mr.
So Mr.
Ryden.
Ryden's question is, Giles mentioned earlier in the show that he also paraglides. First guy that comes up in the chat with the year he started wins them gloves.
Wow. That's a tough question, man.
Because I only mentioned it once.
Wow. All right. I can't wait to see these. There's going to be a little bit of delay, so we'll have a few seconds here. Wow. Yeah.
In the meantime,
DP, hope she gets a quick recovery, buddy. DP.
Dave, who do we have on the show for next week?
So we mentioned Jeff Fletcher is going to be coming on. U2 pilot, spy pilot. He's got to have some incredible stories.
Yeah.
1990, says Greg Harris.
Incorrect.
Hot Steve says 2012. Rick Wetzer says
Incorrect.
2016, 2003 for Aaron I. 2011 for Jerry Dellier. Chris Fenimore is 1958. Come on, Chris.
We got a winner.
What do you got?
We got a winner.
What do you got there?
Slow Days.
Slow Days says 2009. Is that correct? 2009 is correct.
Congratulations, Slow Days.
Right, Slow Days. Very cool.
I think those will fit him, too.
Chuck Johnson says 1839. Jesus. Oh, sorry, Lord. What are you guys saying?
I'm really not that old.
What? All right. Where's Slow Days' answer? I can't even find it now. This has been too funny. All right. Very cool. I'm trying to find his answer. Oh, well. I'm not going to find it that quick. 2009 is here somewhere.
You want me to screenshot it?
No, I believe you. I got it here somewhere.
Do you know what my biggest worry tonight was? People weren't going to understand what I was saying.
Well, thank goodness Greg Anthony here.
No, we listen. And you know what? Your stories were great, Giles. I mean, the accomplishments you've done is just, it's inspiring.
So truth be told, I had an earpiece here. Greg Anthony Harris was in my ear all night giving me a translation of everything you were saying. So
He's been here the past month. I understood everything Giles was saying.
Dave knows the native tongue. So Jeff Fletcher next week, YouTube pilot. It's going to be awesome. And then I don't even know what to title in 2 weeks. Kurt Duggar, he flew across Tennessee. I'm just going to give you just to share this with everybody because this is such an amazing friggin' story. And this was, by the way, Giles is here and so is Jeff next week. These were recommended by Greg Anthony Harris, these guests. And so, Greg, thank you so much, buddy. And Kurt Duggar, Craig Taylor said, I don't even know where this guy is, but see if you can find him. And he flew across the state of Tennessee to raise money for, it's called Dark Horse Lodge. And what they do, and it's still under construction, I talked to Gretchen, who her and her husband are building themselves this amazing lodge. I don't want to go too much into the story, but it's an amazing, amazing story. And he flew across the state, just brand new pilot, flew across the state of Tennessee. He's going to attempt it again. We have two special guest co-hosts joining the three of us that night. And those special co-hosts are going to be two heroes of our country, two people that have also served in the military, two people that everybody knows. One of them is from Resurgence PPG, and that's Todd Scandrett. The other one is a person I've mentioned a couple times tonight from the Paramotor podcast, Anthony Vella. So they will be joining us in that show. That's going to be an amazing, amazing show. And we have another show already lined up for the following week. We'll talk about that next time. What we're going to do in just a moment, we're going to close off the show. We're going to be putting up a screen. It's going to have the meeting ID and the password. So if you'd like to come in and say hi to Giles before he falls asleep on us, you can, or ask him any other questions you might have. It's almost 3 in the morning, or it is just 3:15, I believe, in the morning for you. So holy cow! Thank you so much, Giles, for being here this evening, morning.
It's been a pleasure.
Whatever it is, for whoever you are, and thank you for all the people across not the country, but the world, who are watching our Paramotor Nation. I so appreciate it so much. John Ripa, I always appreciate you, buddy, and all the ideas that you give me. And Dave Ruff, same thing for you, man. I couldn't do this without you two guys. Make sure Wednesday night you are checking out Dave Ruff on the After Dark show. All right? Thank you, everybody, for watching and participating in the chat.
Thanks, Giles.
Thank you for everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for everybody that made a donation on the show, and we will see you next week. Have a good night, everybody.